God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This is the Nathan Napalm channel, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in Pantheon related content on our march to launch. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about how Visionary Realms Pantheon Rise of the Fallen has been developed from the ground up to be a world first, a game second. And what I mean by that is the actual development style of making this game and how they've done that and why that makes such a big difference in the genre and for this particular MMO. Before we deep dive into that, I do want to quote Brad McQuaid, who founded Visionary Realms and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, the man behind EverQuest. In an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, he did quote something that is just so profound. He said, "To me, a proper MMO is more than a game. It's a world. I want to be immersed. I want to escape into a fantasy or sci-fi world, making the very, very early foundations of the holodeck, letting people recreate the 1930s or build new virtual worlds. That's what MMOs are. They're the genesis of that. Because they involve real people and that social aspect, because they're so immersive and will be even more so in the future with VR coming. I lose myself in them. I don't sit there thinking I'm playing a game. I'm really there, and that's what interests me. I still play other games. I play tower defense games on my iPad, but I know I'm playing a game. But if I'm playing a really good MMO, just like watching a really good movie, you're there. You forget that you're sitting there because it brings you in. That's what MMOs do that a lot of games can't do, and that's personally all I want to do. I want to make worlds, not games." And so he used that philosophy from that interview during the entire development of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and we saw that. For everybody who followed it from the beginning, and even for those who didn't, I'm going to explain. They began designing a world. There was a lot of placeholders. The character models were straight up placeholders. The animations, a lot of them still are straight up placeholders. They gray boxed everything. They laid out the world. They designed, they built lore and story and made this world literally before they began making the game. Even God himself built the world first. So all these additional features everybody was, kind of complaining about, like, oh, the graphics don't look good, quoted straight from Asmongold, didn't understand that when you make an MMO, a good one, you have to build a world first. There has to be a world. That's what the game actually is. And the same people who are actually complaining about graphics or animation, etc., they were the same people who were claiming they wanted to go back to classic World of Warcraft because it was more of a world. So they kind of missed the whole mark there. Because, let's face it, World of Warcraft was not an open development. We didn't see how they did that game. And originally they were creating a world. They were creating a place for thriving communities, etc. That was the point, because that is the point of an MMO. Other games were released afterwards that straight up built a game, and then the world just kind of as a backdrop for the adventures that they wanted people to go on, and built kind of this system of you go here, then you go there, then you go here, through things such as quest hubs. And quest hubs kill the world because you're just literally following the same path, the same story as everyone else. There's no world. The world is literally just the background for your story. And that can work in lots of games. That can work in a single player RPG even. Although I would argue that a good single player RPG still builds a world first. And here's the deal, not a lot of MMOs have actually been built this way. We have a few examples that I know were, and that would be number one, Ultima Online. They literally built the world, and Ultima Online was built after CRPGs more so than what EverQuest was more Dungeons and Dragons oriented. However, they did build the world first, and as we know, UO is still pretty successful even today. Next up would be EverQuest, obviously. They built this world first, and it really shows even today. Even if you play the game today, which I highly advise that you do, playing on the Aerodune server, long queue times, but it's worth it, they built the world first. Then they started designing elements that would go into that and how the gameplay would work, and they tweaked and they played around with it, and they got as close to D&D and as close to perfect for 1999 as they possibly could have, and it shows. Next up, Final Fantasy XI built this beautiful, gorgeous world. Now this was Square Enix, so of course they wanted to show off some graphical fidelity, and they did a really good job as that game's graphics honestly still stand up even today. But once again, that world, it was all about the world and the exploration and traveling through these huge zones, just like EverQuest, which was obviously their inspiration. And lastly, even if it hurts some people's feelings, even World of Warcraft Original Vanilla was created with a world first. And these games all are successful, still have success even today, and they're beloved by their fans forever. It will never end. Even with all the crazy things that have happened with the ownership of the franchise of EverQuest, even with the horrible, horrible acts in EverQuest's name, EverQuest Next, we still love that franchise. And I don't think it will ever die. We will always hold a dear and near to our heart place for NORAD, or for Vana'diel, etc. And it was really hard for us to swallow that they were building this world while we wanted to play the game. And they were letting us play, but it was so placeholder. It was so pre-alpha. But they had to build this world for it to be meaningful, for us to want to spend time there, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. So, I'm going to go back and I'm going to read you something about the actual world building from the developers a long time ago. And I quote, "The process begins when I get a nice, thorough lore document hot off the press from the lore master and lead writer. The world building team gets together for a series of meetings where we go through the document, all the moods, the histories, the conflicts, who is involved, and all those juicy details. After the meetings, I start getting a picture of the impact I can have on the player using all the great information that gets vetted. With that fire burning bright, I start hitting the pipeline. And one of the most important early steps is collecting as much reference material as I can. For example, if it's a set of ruins, I look for style, age, type of wear. Was it rained on for 1,000 years? Was there a battle? To answer those questions, I use real-life examples of sorts of areas to gain an inspiration for the fantasy elements. Like if it needs a giant metallic magic mechanism floating with particles, for example. I find smaller elements to help me bring that together as a whole. Being able to bring a world to life and showing something new to the VIPs and followers. Feeling others' excitement for what is being done is one of the biggest rewards I've come to know." End quote. Now that is what it's all about. So you gotta imagine yourself that you know this place has a rich history and lore behind it. Maybe you don't even fully understand that lore yet. Maybe that's something you learn later on through the perception system, which I have videos about that as well. But you can see the history. You can feel it. You can see those sword gashes and that history of war there, or that age, that this is a very ancient place that you're in. And that creates a lot of immersion and makes you, a lot of the times for a lot of players, want to learn more and want to dive deeper and know what happened here. What is this place? And suddenly you forget that you're sitting in an office chair, what have you, at a desk with your fingers on a keyboard and mouse. You forget that you're a person living in reality and you're actually absorbed into this world. And to me, that's more important than any actual game feature you could possibly have. After they finished Project Fairhell, which was a long period of darkness as far as information coming out, at least substantial big announcements, and we all felt the definite pull of that, and it was pretty hard to get through. They did say that because Fairhell, that particular cluster of zones, has so much resources as far as, you know, trees and foliage and textures and everything they need, that now they can start fleshing out the rest of the world fairly quickly. And then we're starting to hear them talk a lot about the actual gameplay, combat, animations in combat, the UI, all those kind of things came next. They built the world first. They gray boxed everything out. They got it all set up. They're not done, but I think they're very close to being done. I think the world is super streamlined now as far as development goes. So now we're focused on the actual gameplay. And that's why now we're starting to get really excited, because they couldn't show us the whole world. They can't show us everything, right? They've shown us the tiniest little minute little things to keep us hyped and to keep us excited and to keep us feeling like we're involved, etc., which is super important in open development with a indie project or a community funded game, right? So now we're getting to the gameplay and how all that's going to work and all that kind of thing, because that's honestly what they're focused on now. Not to say the world is finished, not saying that, but it's streamlined now. It can be done, it's ready. So now they're focusing on what is the second most important thing, which is how the game actually plays. And you can tell by the way they talk it's going to be excellent, but that's a topic for another video. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me that you need to build a world first? Then you can design and develop how the game actually plays and all the systems that go along with that. Do you think that's a smart development way to go for an MMO? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, guys, if you're not already subscribed, please consider doing that, especially if you like this kind of content on old school MMOs or development or Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, because that's what we cover here, as well as JRPGs, CRPGs, RPGs, all that kind of thing. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today. Thanks for joining and listening to my rant. And before I go, I do want to also announce to you guys, because I haven't done it officially, I don't think, and that's that you can join and become a member of the Nathan Napalm channel. It helps with the development of this channel, as well as helps me be able to create more and more content, and I give you back a lot of things, such as early access to many of my videos and much more to come. You do that by clicking the join right down below this video, or if you go to the description, there's a link for mobile users, and you can get that membership for as low as $1.99 per month and become a puppet of Napalm. And please consider doing that, as that is a huge part of what funds this channel and allows me to do what I love to do. But until next time, guys, God bless and happy gaming. Please listen to what I say. I've been making videos all day. My friends all say I'm it's a video buffet. You can even hit replay. But please just subscribe. I can't even describe being part of my tribe. I'll even offer you a prize. But just please just subscribe and hit the bell notification too.